It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday. My son had invited a few friends over to swim, and I had agreed without thinking much of it. The house was too quiet most weekends, and the sound of laughter, splashing, and running feet was almost comforting. Almost. I busied myself with the usual, setting out towels, pouring lemonade into a pitcher, arranging snacks on a tray. Small tasks to make it look like I had a purpose, when in truth, I just didn't want to sit in silence with my thoughts. When I stepped into the backyard, the pool shimmered in the heat, the sun high and merciless. The boys, young men really, were already in the water, loud, carefree, their voices carrying across the yard. My son waved. "Thanks, Mom." I smiled, gave a little nod, and slipped into the shade beneath the umbrella. Book in hand, sunglasses on, I pretended to read. It was easier to keep my eyes on the page, to let them think I was too wrapped up in the words to notice them. But I noticed him, Ethan, my son's best friend. I hadn't seen him in a while, not since they'd finished their last semester. He had grown, broader in the shoulders, taller, his body lean, but cut in the way only youth and constant movement could create. Water dripped from his hair down his chest as he surfaced, shaking droplets into the sun. I told myself not to stare, but I felt it, that pull, the one I hadn't felt in so long I'd forgotten what it was like. I kept my eyes low, pretending to focus on the blur of text in my lap, but the weight of his gaze was unmistakable, heavy, unapologetic. I looked up, quick, as if by accident. He was already looking at me, not a casual glance, not the polite acknowledgement of his friend's mother. His eyes lingered, locked. I felt my stomach flip, my pulse quicken in a way that was instantly shameful, instantly dangerous. Heat crept up my chest, but I forced myself to break the stare, shifting in my chair, pretending to adjust the book. My throat was dry. "Everything okay, Mom?" My son called from the pool, splashing toward the deep end. "Yes," I answered, my voice steadier than I felt. "Enjoy yourselves." They dove and shouted, the moment buried under noise. But I knew. When I dared another glance, Ethan's head tilted just slightly, his lips pulling into a smirk that was almost imperceptible. Almost. And I knew then it wasn't my imagination. That look wasn't innocent, and it had already changed everything. The heat was relentless. The sun baked the patio, and even in the shade beneath the umbrella, the air felt heavy, pressing against my skin. I shifted in my chair, fanned myself with the book I wasn't reading, and tried to ignore the way my body was restless, too aware of him. The boys were still loud, splashing, competing over who could hold their breath the longest, who could swim the fastest across the pool. My son laughed, carefree, and for a moment I envied that ease, that oblivion. I set the book down and slid my sunglasses higher on my nose. My legs ached from sitting so long, and the shimmering blue water looked too tempting to resist. Slowly, carefully, I slipped off my sandals and walked toward the edge of the pool. The concrete was warm under my bare feet as I sat down, letting my calves sink into the water. The relief was instant, cool and soothing, little ripples licking at my skin. I told myself it was innocent, that no one would notice, but someone did. When I glanced up, Ethan was leaning against the far edge of the pool, water glistening on his shoulders, hair slicked back. He wasn't playing with the others anymore. He was watching me. Not the way boys glance, careless and quick. His gaze was deliberate, locked, dragging down the length of my legs submerged in the water, then up again, slow enough to make my stomach clench. I froze, every nerve awake, heat flooding through me despite the cool water. My first instinct was to move, to hide, to pull my legs out and retreat. But instead I stayed and felt his stare like hands on my skin. When our eyes finally met, there was no pretense, no accident. He didn't look away. A smirk tugged at his lips, subtle but sharp. The noise of the others seemed distant, muffled, as though the pool had shrunk to just the two of us. My heart pounded, guilt and thrill colliding in my chest. I forced myself to turn my gaze back to the water, dipping my toes deeper, pretending not to notice. But I noticed. And when I dared another quick glance, he was still staring, unashamed. Something had shifted, irreversibly. It was no longer just a look. It was an acknowledgement. I pressed my lips together, trying to swallow the trembling in my chest. My son's laughter rang out behind me, pulling me back into the reality I was supposed to be in. But inside, all I could think of was the way Ethan's eyes had lingered, the way he hadn't looked away, and the way my body had answered silently, shamefully, with its own unspoken yes. The afternoon dragged on, the air thick with chlorine and sun. My son and the others eventually climbed out, dripping and laughing, heading inside for snacks. I stayed put, legs still in the water, pretending to enjoy the quiet while my heart thudded far too fast. Ethan didn't follow them. I heard the sliding glass door shut behind the others, their voices muffled inside. When I looked up, he was still in the pool, elbows resting lazily on the edge near where I sat. Water slid down his arms, dripping back into the blue. "You're not going in?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound casual, motherly. He shook his head, a slow grin spreading across his lips. "I like it here." His eyes flicked down, openly tracing the line of my thighs where the water lapped against my skin. I swallowed hard, heat rushing up my neck. "You'll catch cold," I muttered, reaching for one of the towels stacked nearby. My hands trembled as I pulled one free. He climbed out, water streaming down his body, shorts clinging tight to his skin. I tried not to look, but my gaze betrayed me, the muscles of his stomach, the water glistening across his chest. He stood too close, droplets splashing onto my legs as he reached for the towel. I held it out, but instead of taking it cleanly, his fingers brushed mine, slow and deliberate. His hand was hot from the water, slick against my skin, and he didn't pull away quickly. "Thanks," he said, voice low, rougher than usual. "You're welcome," I managed, breath catching. He dragged the towel across his hair, then over his chest, never breaking eye contact. I felt pinned beneath it, unable to move, every nerve screaming at me to retreat, to stand, to leave, but I didn't. When he finished, he leaned in slightly, close enough that I could smell the clean bite of chlorine on his skin. His voice dropped, softer, meant only for me. "You like me looking, don't you?" The words hit like a blow, my face burning hot. "Ethan." "What?" His grin curved sharper. wolfish. I can feel it. You don't look away. You don't tell me to stop. My throat tightened. Shame, fear, desire, it all twisted inside me until I couldn't tell one from the other. My son's laughter echoed faintly from the kitchen, and yet here I was, frozen under the stare of his best friend. I should have said no. I should have ended it right then. But the silence between us stretched, heavy, damning. And in that silence, I gave him an answer far louder than words. His smirk deepened, satisfied. I pulled my legs from the water, my hands shaking as I grabbed my book, muttering, "Go dry off inside." But even as I walked away, my skin still burned where his hand had touched mine. I thought I'd escaped him when I walked inside. My son and his friends were gathered around the counter, laughing, shoving chips into their mouths, water dripping onto the tile. I smiled, forced, and asked if they needed anything. They waved me off, lost in their noise. I carried the tray of empty glasses back toward the sink, telling myself to breathe, to get a hold of myself. It was just looks, just heat, nothing more. But when I stepped into the kitchen again, the noise was gone. My son had dragged the others into the living room for a game, voices faint behind the wall. And there, leaning against the counter, was Ethan, alone. Shirtless, still wet from the pool, water trailing down his chest, sliding into the waistband of his shorts. His hair dripped, the droplets hitting the floor one by one. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just looked at me, steady and unashamed. I froze at the doorway, tray clutched against me like a shield. "You'll catch a cold like that," I said, my voice too thin. His lips curved, slow, dangerous. "You already said that." I swallowed hard, setting the tray down with shaking hands. The kitchen felt smaller, the air thicker, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "You should go with the others," I whispered. "I'd rather stay here." His words were blunt, direct, carrying that quiet confidence that unsettled me. He pushed off the counter and stepped closer, his bare feet leaving wet prints on the tile. I stepped back instinctively, my hip hitting the edge of the counter. Nowhere to go. Water dripped from his hair, sliding down his temple, across his jaw, falling onto my collarbone. I shivered, heat rushing across my skin. He reached for one of the glasses from the tray, his fingers grazing mine as he took it, deliberately slow. His hand lingered longer than necessary, rough and wet, leaving me trembling. "Why do you pretend?" he asked softly, eyes locked onto mine. "I don't." "Yes, you do." He leaned in, close enough that his breath brushed my cheek, his body radiating heat and water. "I pretend to read, pretend not to stare, pretend you don't want me." My lips parted, but no words came out. Outside, my son laughed at something on the TV, the sound cutting through the silence for a brief moment. The reminder of where we were, who we were supposed to be, made my chest tighten with guilt. But Ethan didn't care. His eyes never wavered, steady, dark, wolfish. He set the glass down, so close his fingers grazed mine again. "You can tell me to stop," he whispered. I stood there trembling, unable to speak. My silence was louder than anything I could have said. He smirked, stepping back just enough to let me breathe again. But his eyes told me the truth. He already knew. By late afternoon, the heat had begun to fade, the sky painted in streaks of orange and pink. My son's friends started drifting home one by one until only Ethan was left. He lingered, slow to gather his things, joking that he'd wait until his ride texted. My son disappeared upstairs to shower, music blasting from behind the closed door. And just like that, it was only the two of us. I sat on the pool's edge, feet dangling in the cool water, clutching my book though I hadn't read a single page. The backyard was quiet now, except for the rustle of leaves and the gentle lap of water against tile. I sensed him before I saw him. Ethan padded across the patio, his presence heavy, certain, filling the silence. He sat beside me without asking, his thigh brushing mine, still damp and warm from the pool. The contact was small, but it made my pulse race as though he'd grabbed me outright. "You're quiet," he said, voice low, casual, but charged. "I like the quiet," I answered, eyes fixed on the water. My voice betrayed me, thin, trembling. "You didn't seem quiet earlier." His tone shifted, sharper. "You don't think I noticed, do you?" I turned to look at him, startled. His face was close, too close, candlelight from the patio lanterns catching on the wet strands of his hair. His eyes pinned me in place. "What?" I whispered, though I already knew. His smirk was slow, wolfish, the way you watch me. My throat tightened. "Ethan!" "You keep pretending," he cut in, leaning closer, his words meant only for me. "Pretending to read, pretending you don't feel it when I look at you, but I see it. I feel it." I swallowed hard, my body betraying me with the way my breath quickened. My son's footsteps creaked faintly upstairs, a reminder of the danger just above us. But Ethan didn't flinch. He didn't care. He leaned even closer, so near I could feel his breath warm against my ear. "You keep acting like you're invisible. You're not. Not to me." The words struck deep, raw, unfiltered, more dangerous than any touch. My hands trembled against my lap, fingers gripping the book until my knuckles ached. Every nerve screamed at me to push him away, to stop this before it burned me alive. But I didn't move. I stayed, trembling, while his thigh pressed firmer against mine, his presence devouring the air between us. The sound of water lapping against my legs blurred with the sound of my heartbeat. And in that fragile, dangerous silence, I realized something I hadn't dared admit out loud. I didn't want him to stop. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every sound feel like a secret. My son's shower was still running upstairs, faint music leaking through the pipes. Out here by the pool, it was just me and Ethan, the air heavy with the things neither of us should be admitting. I shifted, ready to stand, to walk away before I did something I couldn't take back. But as I moved, his hand shot out, quick, certain, closing around my wrist. I froze. His grip wasn't gentle. His fingers were wet, rough from chlorine and callous skin, but steady, not letting me go. My breath caught, the book slipping from my lap into the water with a soft splash. "Don't," I whispered, but my voice broke, weak. He leaned closer, eyes locked on mine, burning. "You don't mean that." "Ethan!" My chest tightened, shame twisting with something hotter. His thumb dragged slowly along the inside of my wrist, tracing the frantic beat of my pulse. The touch was simple but deliberate, claiming me without permission, testing if I'd fight. I didn't. I should have pulled back. I should have yanked my hand free, stood tall, ended this madness. But instead, I sat trembling, watching as his fingers tightened slightly, holding me there, forcing me to feel how alive my body was under his touch. "You feel that?" he murmured. His voice was low, rough like a growl. "That's not nothing." My lips parted, but I couldn't speak. I hated how right he was. My whole body hummed, my skin burning beneath his grip. From upstairs came the sound of a door shutting, muffled laughter from my son. My heart lurched. Every nerve screamed about the danger, the betrayal. But Ethan didn't flinch. His eyes never wavered, his thumb still circling over my pulse, slow, deliberate. You don't tell me to stop. And I didn't. Instead, I sat there, caught between terror and desire, my silence screaming louder than words ever could. Finally, after what felt like forever, he let go. His hand slipped away slowly, almost reluctantly, leaving my skin hot and tingling where he touched me. I pulled my wrist to my lap, cradling it like a secret, shame flooding me. He leaned back, smirk curling his lips. He said softly, "I told you, you don't mean it." I stood abruptly, legs shaking, muttering something about dinner, about needing to check on the kitchen, but the truth was already carved into me. That touch had changed everything. And no matter how much I told myself to stop, I knew I'd been waiting for it. I couldn't focus on anything after that. The simple grip of his hand on my wrist lingered like fire, searing into me long after he had let go. I busied myself in the kitchen, chopping vegetables I didn't need, wiping down clean counters, anything to steady my nerves. But every movement shook, every thought circled back to him. When the boys finally settled in the living room with a game, laughter echoing through the walls, I tried to slip past unnoticed, to escape upstairs and put distance between us. But as I stepped into the hallway, he was already there. Ethan, leaning against the wall, waiting. The sight of him made my breath falter. His hair still damp, his shirt clinging faintly to his chest, his eyes steady and dark, as if he knew exactly what was coming. I stopped, my hands tightening around the dish towel I'd carried as a shield. "You shouldn't." He pushed off the wall and closed the distance in 2 strides, not rushing, not desperate, deliberate. He stopped close enough that his body heat wrapped around me, close enough that my back brushed the opposite wall. "I want you." The words dropped from his mouth with no hesitation, no soft edge, no attempt to disguise them. Blunt, direct. My stomach twisted, shame crashing into a wave of heat that left me breathless. "Ethan, don't." "Why not?" His jaw clenched, his voice low, rough. "Because I'm younger? Because I'm your son's friend?" His eyes narrowed. "That doesn't change the way you look at me. I see it. I feel it every time you don't pull away." My pulse pounded in my throat. "It's wrong." The words were thin, fragile, breaking apart even as I said them. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear, his voice a growl. "Tell me you don't want me, and I'll walk out that door, right now." My lips parted, trembling, but nothing came out. No denial, no protest, just silence. And he knew. His hand braced against the wall beside my head, trapping me, though he didn't touch me otherwise. His eyes searched mine, steady, certain, reading me like an open book. "You can't say it," he whispered. I shook my head faintly, shame burning in my cheeks. My silence was louder than any confession I could have spoken. A slow smirk spread across his lips, sharp, satisfied. Then stopped pretending. The hallway felt too small, the air too hot, my chest too tight. My son's laughter echoed faintly from the other room, oblivious. And here I was, standing against the wall, my body trembling under the weight of Ethan's words. I should have ended it. I should have run. But instead, I let his confession seep into me, carving a truth I could no longer deny. I wanted him, and for the first time in years, I felt wanted in return. I couldn't breathe with him standing that close. The walls of the hallway pressed in, the air thick with chlorine and heat, his scent wrapping around me until I felt dizzy. His words still hung between us, raw and brutal. I want you. I should have pushed him back. I should have told him to leave, to never speak of this again. But instead I stood frozen, my heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest, my silence betraying me. He smirked, seeing it all. You won't stop me. And then he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't cautious. It was hungry, rough, claiming. His mouth crashed against mine, his hand gripping the side of my face, fingers tangled in my hair as if he had been waiting too long to hold back. I gasped, but he swallowed the sound, his tongue forcing mine to answer, his body pressing against me with a heat that stole all reason. My back hit the wall harder, his chest pinning me in place. The taste of him, chlorine, salt, the faint sweetness of soda from earlier, burned through me, addictive, intoxicating. My hands betrayed me, clutching at his shoulders, pulling him closer when I should have been pushing him away. He smirked. He groaned into my mouth, low and raw, the sound vibrating through me. His hands slid down my side, fingers digging into my hip as if he couldn't get close enough, as if he wanted to consume me whole. For a moment, the world disappeared. No house, no sun upstairs, no rules. Just his mouth, his heat, his body devouring mine in a kiss that felt like fire after years of cold. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathing hard, lips swollen, hearts racing. His thumb brushed rough across my jaw, dragging slow over the skin he had just claimed. You taste like you've been starving, he muttered, voice gravel deep. Shame and desire collided inside me. My lips trembled, parting with words I didn't even believe. We can't. But even as I whispered it, I leaned forward again, seeking his mouth like I couldn't stop myself. His smirk was sharp, dangerous. You already did. And then he kissed me again, harder, hungrier, until all I could do was melt against him, my body betraying every rule I'd ever lived by. The sound of footsteps creaked faintly upstairs. My son, reality crashing in. I shoved against his chest, breaking the kiss with a gasp. My lips burned, my body aching, trembling with what I'd just allowed. Ethan stepped back slowly, chest heaving, eyes dark with triumph. You'll never forget that. And I knew he was right. I stumbled back from him, my chest rising and falling like I'd just run a marathon. My lips throbbed, my body still burning from his kiss, and yet the creak of footsteps above reminded me of where we were and who might be listening. I pressed a hand to my mouth, as if I could erase what had just happened, as if I could erase him. Ethan just stood there, leaning against the wall with that infuriating smirk, eyes dark and full of hunger. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't shaken. If anything, the thrill of it seemed to make him even bolder. I whispered, fierce but shaky, "Are you insane?"
He could have come down. He tilted his head, steadying me with a predator's calm. But he didn't. His voice was low, taunting, and even if he had, would you really have pushed me away? My stomach twisted. The worst part was that I didn't know. I turned sharply, needing distance, needing to breathe. My hands trembled as I poured myself a glass of water, gulping it down, though it did nothing to wash away the taste of him on my lips. I should have felt disgusted. I should have felt furious. But all I felt was alive, more alive than I had in years, and that terrified me. Behind me, I heard the soft creak of floorboards as he stepped closer. His presence filled the kitchen, thick and heavy, pressing against me even without his hands on me. "You feel guilty," he murmured, so close his breath touched my ear. "But you'll keep thinking about it. Every time you look at me, you'll remember how it felt." I squeezed the glass tighter, my knuckles white. "You don't know me." His laugh was low, rough. "I know enough. I know you want more. You can lie to yourself, but not to me." Before I could answer, the sound of a door upstairs opening made me flinch. My son's voice floated faintly down the stairs, casual, careless, like the world wasn't about to collapse around me. I spun, panic clawing up my throat. "Go, now!" Ethan's smirk didn't fade. He took one slow step back, his gaze raking over me with deliberate hunger, before he finally turned toward the door. "You'll come to me," like a promise, before slipping out into the night. I stood frozen in the kitchen, my pulse racing, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. When my son finally came downstairs, yawning and asking if there were leftovers, I forced a smile, my lips still swollen, my voice trembling, as I said, "Check the fridge." And while he searched for food, I stood there, shaking, my body still on fire, my mind screaming that I had just crossed a line I could never uncross. But deep down, beneath the guilt, a darker truth coiled in my chest. I didn't regret it. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt his mouth on mine again, rough, hungry, shameless. My lips tingled as though his kiss had branded me, and when I turned on my side to try to escape the memory, my body betrayed me, aching with need I didn't dare name. By morning, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes restless, my skin humming like I'd woken from a fever dream. I told myself I was disgusted, ashamed, but my reflection told another story, one of a woman who had been starved and who had just tasted something forbidden. All through the day, I kept busy with chores, anything to keep my hands occupied. I folded laundry, scrubbed dishes, even trimmed the rose bushes in the yard. But every ordinary task was haunted by him. The scrape of thorns against my skin made me think of his rough stubble brushing my cheek. The smell of soap reminded me of his sweat, salt, and heat on my tongue. And the worst part? Every time my son spoke to me, I caught myself glancing past him toward the door, wondering if Ethan would appear again. By late afternoon, I gave up pretending. I sat on the edge of the pool with my book open, though I didn't read a single word. My eyes kept darting to the gate. I told myself it was because I didn't want him to come back, but my pulse betrayed me, quickening every time I thought I heard footsteps. And then he was there. He leaned against the fence, arms crossed, shirt damped with sweat. He hadn't even bothered to knock. His gaze caught mine, steady and unflinching, and my stomach dropped. "You've been thinking about me," he said, not asking but declaring it, his voice low and sure. I swallowed hard. "You shouldn't be here." "Doesn't look like you want me to leave." He smirked, stepping closer, his boots crunching the gravel, his shadow stretching across the pool until it reached my legs. My breath caught. My son was upstairs. The neighbors could see. The world could fall apart, but none of it mattered when he was looking at me like that, like I was the only thing that existed. I stood too quickly, nearly dropping the book. "You're reckless." "So are you," he murmured, closing the last few feet between us. His hand brushed mine just enough to make me shiver. "You can pretend all you want, but you're not done with me." My pulse thundered, my body betraying me with the way I leaned, just slightly toward him. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He was right. I wasn't done. I couldn't be.